Hey guys, we're back doing another episode of a great conversation here on Nerds and Suits. We took a couple weeks off. There were some awful things that happened in that time, including me taking a big L in the movie trivia Schmoedown. This was recorded before that, so I am full of optimism. But all of that aside, I had a great time talking to my friend Kate. She's great. You guys know Kate really well if you follow any of the Schmoedown or the SEN stuff, and she's just is a treat to talk to. So I think you guys will really enjoy this. She's very honest about kind of getting back into the entertainment space, and it's just a pretty funny episode in general. So I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you watching and sticking with the channel. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do. When the video's over, if you could leave a comment, that would mean a lot to me. It makes a big difference to the channel. So a big thank you to Nicole Krafik and Lucas Shashek, my infinity patrons in the Nerd Network. A big time straightening of the tie. Look forward to some other fun content coming out this month. I got another studio diary coming up pretty soon. I got a cover session coming up pretty soon. A lot of good stuff happening on Nerds and Suits as we get back into the full flow of things on the channel. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching and thanks for listening, and enjoy this interview with the one, the only, Kate Mulligan. Mulligan, you moved to LA when? You moved what age?
I was 23. It was 2005. Does that make sense? Was I 23 2005? Might have been 2006. I maybe moved here I moved here in 2000. Who knows? I was 23. Sorry, I'll answer the question that has asked. I was 23, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I was 23 years old. I'm currently 38.
You came from Chicago? Is that
from Chicago?
Well,
the Chicago suburbs. I should be real clear about that, because anybody that's actually from Chicago would be outraged that I would say I was from Chicago. I'm from Downers Grove, Illinois. It is not the same. Everybody's always like, oh, like our town? No, that's Grover's Corners. Very different. I don't know if you're familiar with that play, but also very similar. Very sleepy town.
I've been to Chicago bunch of times now, but almost 100% of the time just going through the airport.
Oh yeah,
I've done work in Chicago a bunch, but it's always like, what the hell are the names of the places? Because Kmart was out there, right?
Yes.
That was so
Marshall Fields used to be there. Like, when you go out there, are you with? I love that I'm interviewing you. Are you out there like going to like conventions and stuff, or what do you do when you go to Chicago?
Well, so I've been to Chicago probably like in the city. I've probably been to Chicago like 8 or 9 times in the last 3 years. And then I think probably through the airport like 60 or 70 times. But I would meet with Kmart. I think they're out there. Claire's, I think, is based out there.
Yes!
I pitched them before. Yes. It's hard for me to remember exactly. I've definitely pitched both of them. I actually think, is Walgreens out there too? Did I make that up?
I bet it is. Yeah. I don't know if it's headquartered there, but they're on every block there. So if Dwayne Reed is in New York, then I gotta believe Walgreens is in Chicago.
Yeah, so for sure, because Hoffman Estates, right? That's where I've gone. Yeah. Okay.
God,
so I've gone to all those. I've pitched all those places, and then Schmoedown did a show in 2018. Probably I performed there. I did that, and then I've done like 2 magic because of the podcast. I've done more successful magic podcasts. No, I'm kidding. I've done that a couple times as well. So yeah, Chicago's great. I love Chicago.
I have to say, I definitely have appreciated the city more since I moved away from it, because it was definitely the city we would go to as kids. Like, if we would do like every Christmas, we would go down, we would take the train down and see the lights, and then walk to Geno's East and like wait in line for an hour in the snow and like eat at Geno's East and then walk back to the train. I mean, there was definitely stuff we did, but I don't think I understood to appreciate it. I did live in the city just before moving out here, and I did love that too. I feel like it's just it's the perfect size city. It's big. It's bigger than, Canton, Ohio. I couldn't think of anything, but it's not as big as New York. It's not as overwhelming as New York. But I also find New York to be the sexiest city in the world. So
you love New York?
I love New York. I think it's the greatest. Do you not love New York?
I do really love New York, but I have to say, like, my experience with New York is that anytime I'm ever there, I always feel like every street in Manhattan looks exactly the same. The whole like main part of the city looks like it's I don't know. I don't find New York to be as awesome, I think, as I imagine I would have when I was growing up. I do like think it's great. I just don't think it's like the greatest city on earth de facto, like everything pales in comparison. And if I could afford to live there, I would, kind of thing, which I think some people have that attitude.
Yeah.
I love LA. Like I love Santa Monica more than anything I've ever done in New York.
Really?
Like, I'm so happy. I love living where I live. The goal is just to keep grinding away at the YouTube hustle, making $5 a stream, and eventually buy a $5 million home north of Montana.
Very specific. You know what my true north of cities is, though?
No.
Seattle.
That's your favorite?
The way Dickie and I both love Seattle. Now it's cost prohibitive. It's not like we can move there, but just that whole like my roommate for 4 years in college, we got just placed together, but she was from Seattle, so I've been there a bunch of times to see her. I am somebody who loves gloom. I love gloom, and I think it's because like I'm not somebody that feeds off of the weather either way. I love feeling cozy. I love having different like types. I mean, here we have one wardrobe. We don't change wardrobes ever. It's like you have like short sleeves or middle length sleeves. I mean, you never have a sweater on here. I feel like.
Unless you want to just be a psycho like me and like wear a jacket often, even in the blazing hot summer. Like, I mean, my Blazers are getting pit stains at this point, so like that's a real thing that's happening.
I feel like you're somebody I can always talk filth to. I feel like we could talk farts, and I feel like we could talk farts and pit stains.
What a compliment! That's an endearing comment to get from someone. You know we're friends because you can make that comment.
Well, I do, but also I feel like the first time you and I actually met in person, like I talked a bunch of shit about you before I ever met you. Sorry about that. Oh, my bad. But then I feel like the first time we were on SEN together, you were talking about always farting when you were doing your show with Andrew Guy, and if he like noticed it, I was like,
yeah, yep.
Oh, this guy's not as buttoned up as I feel like I thought he was. Like he's got some fart.
Somebody today said to me, they were like, you remind me of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, and I was like, I hope not in a I murder women kind of way. And they're like, well, you do seem kind of like a murderer, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing in this conversation right now, but like,
you're like, it's just a similar last name. That's all it is. You're just conflating. That's insane.
No, do you know the true story of that though? By the way, no. I don't know if I've ever told you this before. That Bateman is not my legal last name.
Oh, I do know this because I think I was, and also somebody you're close to is also doesn't have the name that we think he has. I forget what your name is though. I know the other one. No, wait, I don't. Wait, so how did you get the last name Bateman then?
This is the funny part, and this is why the American Psycho thing is so funny to me that someone would actually say that to me. It's from American Psycho. That's actually where my last name came from. Okay. I don't think I've ever told the story on air before. I'm pretty sure I only tell this to friends because it's such like a ridiculous thing. It's like stupid also. But basically, I have a different last name, and a lot of people know. Like if you guys are watching this channel right now, and if you PayPal or Streamlabs, like a lot of you guys do, because every dollar that comes through PayPal or Streamlabs on this just goes towards my Gibson Hummingbird, the guitar I'm trying to buy. As you guys know, I don't ask for donations here for any other reason. We have a fund that just goes towards the guitar. Point being, when you guys Streamlabs, you get a receipt from my legal last name. So everybody who's ever donated knows my legal last name. Like if they wanted to, it's not like it's like, but I'm gonna still keep it somewhat secret.
This is
don't put it in the fucking comments. No.
You say you're gonna see me like just a bunch of money come in from me. I just want that receipt, baby. I want that receipt.
Like, yeah, basically I was 19, and my favorite movie was American Psycho, and I worked at Nordstrom. We all wore suits, and we quoted American Psycho all the time as part of like our sales culture. It was because I don't really know why. I think it's just like a bunch of people in suits all the time, and like it's this very like sort of funny, like for sort of filthy locker room frat boy sort of talk. But like, anyway, point being, as you know, I have a decent memory for movies. And so I knew the words to that movie quite well. And I could recite full monologues from the movie. Like I knew pretty much every word. I'd seen the movie like 100 times. And so my nickname became Bateman because I had a manager when I went to a new Nordstrom store. His name was Ben, and so they tried to call me my legal last name, and I was like, I don't want you guys calling me like. They're like, you can't be Ben. Go by your last name. And I was like, don't call me that shit. I don't like that.
You didn't want them to call you what? What was it that you didn't want them to call you?
Yeah. It's just not my favorite name, and so somebody was like, call him Bateman. That's what we called him at the old store, and so everybody just started calling me Bateman. And so then when my business cards came, that was 19. It's like 2008. 2007, I think. My business cards came and they said Benjamin Bateman. And all my customers, at Nordstrom, it's like you have personal book, like you're interacting. I would give them my card and they'd be like, is Ben Bateman there? And so that was what I had a very personal relationship with all these customers as Ben Bateman. And so I would get like calls on the loudspeaker. This is when my last name was like still not changed. I was still like And it, you'd hear on the loudspeaker be like, Ben Bateman, 6'2", because that's like the pick up the line 6'2" or whatever. And so I was going to move to LA in 2009, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I think when I move in 6 months, I should just go by Ben Bateman. It's a better name. I like it more than that name, and it fits. And I did, and that was
That
11
story
years
is not
ago.
embarrassing at all. I thought it was literally that you were like, I really liked the movie and I really liked that character. So I just like it was bestowed upon you. It wasn't something you asked for. And it actually was organic that it happened. Like this is not an embarrassing, like changing name story. I like
It's funny, but it's a funny story because legally my last name is still the other name, but I'm 32, and for 11 years of my life, I've been Ben Bateman. My family's accepted it. All my friends that fought it for years, they all fought it for years. Like I have one friend from high school that still refuses to call me Bateman. That's it. Everybody else, every person I know in LA I didn't meet is that old name. So like anyway, now I'm telling stories about me. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about that.
We're here. I'm actually people are gonna love that. For the record, you just got that hummingbird because I'm telling you, everybody's gonna be like, wait, what? I can find out his last name. Oh,
yeah, I know. Maybe that section's got to come out of the interview. I don't know. Last week I was like live on air. I was like talking to my guest, and I was like, "Look, man, I'm an alcoholic," and I was like, "Oh, maybe this has got to get cut out." And then I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna post it," and so I did. And can't get any worse than that.
Are you a new alcoholic in this quarantine as well, or have you always been? Is that vodka or water?
It's water. It's water. No. The truth of the matter is I've gone in and out of drinking a lot and less in my time, but quarantine definitely is a lot of time at home.
Yeah.
It's definitely got a little more dangerous. And so I kind of had a big conversation with my friend John, who was on the show last week, and he said some really interesting stuff. And so I decided that I wanted some self-reflection time. So I'm taking a little time off of it now to try to get a little more clarity. Because this is a hard time to try to get clarity. I think it's last year I did this. I did 90 days sober last year, and it was great. It was very helpful.
So many days.
It's a lot of time. I know. It was great though, and I lost all this weight and lost all these Schmoedown matches that I was sure I was going to win because I was like sober. I was like, I'm going to win all my matches because I'm sober. I lost every match I played while I was sober. So
this is, oh my God, you need to be on the sauce through this upcoming Friday. What are you talking about? Go to your kitchen and get a whiskey. Oh, I got to tell you, I never thought I had problematic drinking until this time. I definitely feel like it's gotten a bit problematic. And so I've just sort of given myself a few, like, can I only drink on weekends? Can I, and the answer is no, I cannot. But I do feel like part of the thing that's so strange about this time, especially if you're somebody in LA, is I'm not leaving my house. So I'm never driving. And when you're never driving, like you don't have to worry about, like, now I do have
drunk all the time.
I do have kids, so like he and I definitely check in with each other. Like, I'm going to tie a few on because somebody has to, if something happened in the middle of the night and we had to, like, I don't want to be out of commission. But God, I don't remember ever drinking this much in my life. I didn't even drink this much in college. I didn't drink till I was 21 years old.
Do you guys get up in the morning and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to be drunk all day today," or you're going to be drunk all day today, and one of us gets to be hammed all day if we want, but the other one has to be sober?
No, unfortunately, neither of us does day drinking ever. So my problematic drinking is just once the kids go to bed. It's that I've been drinking but it's exactly what you said. I mean, like, I just, like, even now I'm like, oh, just like my arm, like there's just like weight in places that it's like, ugh. And that's just 100% the alcohol. It's just like, yeah.
Do you think about the fact that, like, when you were growing up, when I was growing up, none of these types of conversations like that we're having on air that's going to live on YouTube until the end of time existed? So you couldn't, at your age right now, go and look at a conversation that your mom had at the age you are right now, where your mom would be like, "Yeah, when we put Kate to bed, I get drunk." And I do it as often as I can, and I do it when she's in bed. And, like, can you imagine if you were able to, like, watch the video of your mother right now? You'd be like, "Wow, puts it all in perspective."
Yeah, I mean, this is so interesting that you said that because I had one of my best friends from college and also just in life came from a famous family, and her mother passed, and I remember being so. It was obviously such a tragedy. It was so horrible, but I remember being, like, slightly jealous. that, the ways in which she was still going to be able to connect with her mother was just by watching any of her, like, and I was thinking, God, it made me think about like my own mom and dad, like my own parents' deaths someday. I was like, there's nothing, but like, I have all their voicemails, like at this point, but like, we don't even do voicemails anymore. Like, what do I do? How do I keep the text? Like, there's nothing I have to tap in. It's exactly what you've talked. It's just so funny that I've thought about this before. I've never thought about in regards to my own kids. And now that I am thinking about it, thank you. I have to change the way I speak on SEN Live.
Well, I mean, I think that we're personalities on camera, right?
Yeah.
And we're, as I like to say, we're maybe at best like a Z-list famous or somewhere. We're somewhere in the lowest.
I might be in like double letter alphabet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we're in the same.
No, you and I are not. No, Ben Bateman. We are not like you people that like you're famous even to those people from Nordstrom that loved you. No, I am like after the alphabet, it's A. It's like a vending machine. A B B C C. I might be Z Z for all I know.
You're okay. You're like the second. So like KM is like that's like letter 27 kind of thing.
Yes, 100%.
Please tell me, are there 26 letters in the alphabet? I really hope I didn't just out myself for being a moron. There are, right?
There are.
Oh God. I said it and I was like, if there's 23 and I don't point this out right now, I'm going to get so many comments.
You're going to get the same amount of comments now for questioning yourself about 26 because you said it with no certainty.
I know that was bad. I shouldn't have done that move, but yeah, it is wild that that's the world we live in. And I think as personalities, I think about that sometimes, like, I went through like a big relationship over the last 5 years with somebody in our space. So over 5 years, there's an endless amount of content. There's an endless amount of content with me and I mean, I'm not gonna. It's Roxy Stryer, like everybody knows this.
It was me,
there's
guys.
An endless amount of content.
Okay.
Roxy on shows, of me on shows.
Yes.
Like that relationship on some level is a fairly public relationship. That's bizarre to me. That looking back, the relationship I was in from the time I was 21 to 24, there's nothing public about that will ever exist. The only people that even knows that girl's name are my friends that were my friends during that time. So it's really weird to think about that.
Tell us her name, then we'll know it.
My ex-girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah. Her name was Elizabeth.
I know her.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Thank God you get out of that. Ooh, she was.
Had to drink some vodka to get past that one.
No, that is such a strange thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So you come out here when you're 23 and you get into, you immediately gravitate towards stand up or acting the whole bit. You're a triple threat.
Yeah. I wasn't a threat in any of them. That is the God's honest truth. But no, I came out and I immediately worked at a tax office and a production company. No, but I immediately had a commercial agent, which was great. And I had already done Second City Conservatory out in Chicago. So I sort of came out here and I wouldn't say it was an ego about it, but I sort of was like, I did improv where one should do improv. I do think that has changed a lot. I think even then probably that was the case. I think UCB, both in New York and out here, and Groundlings out here, obviously, like the likes of Ken Knapsack and Kristen Wiig in the same Groundlings class, shows you that, like obviously you can start improv anywhere now. But I just sort of was like, well, I've done that. So I came out and I pretty soon after started, maybe within that first year, started doing stand-up, met Christian during that time too. And yeah, it was, but I was still trying to act. And that production company I worked for, I think I can actually say the name now because they are no longer a thing, was Lakeshore Entertainment. And you'll look at my IMDb and all of those 9 films that I was in were all Lakeshore films. They were great. They always would let me audition. They would throw me some one-line part. They flew me to Portland. They flew me to Albuquerque to shoot Gamer with Jerry Butler. I mean, they were so good to me and had no reason to be because I was mediocre at best. But yeah, it was that I did that. I mean, I still to this day, like I'm still in SAG. I still get residuals, but I have no, like I saw you went on an audition the other day, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I have a new hosting agent, and it was
hosting
part of a host in a commercial. Yeah, I'm not an actor anymore. So
okay. I was gonna say because like the thought of like I was never. I think I'm just too basic, Ben. I think, honest to God, like I loved going to my production company office job where I worked in international sales and like input to the contracts of the movies that we pre-sold. Like, I don't know. There was something about like this. I'm a kid from the Midwest who likes stability. If you told me that there was a TV show that I could just be on and I could be funny on, and it would be very like rigid hours and my paycheck would come I'd be like, that's the job I want. But like, the truth is, to get to that, there's such uncertainty, such insecurity, such like, I don't do well when there's no 2 day, like, and I feel like you actually thrive in this, where no 2 days are the same in a week for me.
Sure.
Oh, I would be like, no, I love like knowing Monday is this and Wednesday is this and Thursday is like it. I feel like you would be fine. Like if it was like Monday, you're driving out to Santa Monica to do 7 auditions, and then you're going to drive to the East Side because you have a business meeting for whatever. Like, you don't mind having every single one of your days different, like a different shape, do you?
I mean, I think what I learned from doing, I mean, I've pretty consistently done these 2 careers side by side for 3 years now. And like, the funny part is that the entertainment career and the toy company, they rose at a very similar level. So I never got the thing that I figured was going to happen, where one took off way faster than the other. But also the nature of like the way I'm willing to live my life, I was able to do both. It just meant that I didn't ever really have days off, and I never really had hours off.
Right.
And I lived, and I mean, there were like long stretches over the course of like 2018, 2019, where like I was just like living in hotels basically, or like never, gone for like 13 out of 21 days kind of a thing, in like, 7 different states. And there's an appeal to it. It's really exhausting. And it is.
Did you like it? Did you like that or no?
I mean, when the travel was intense, absolutely not. But I mean, like, there was some level of romance to like, I don't know. There's like a level of romance to like being in Hoffman Estates on like Wednesday for a meeting, and then like flying to Houston that weekend to go perform in Schmoedown, and like flying back and doing a show on Monday, and like, and the points and everything. So I get to fly first class a lot. Like there was cool pieces to it.
Yeah.
Pieces to it that I like, pieces to it that I like. I would see somebody at a premiere that I got invited to in LA that I had to miss because I was like presenting to like Kinney Drugs or something. And I'd just be like, man, like that's the life I want to be living. But like, so, it's, it's a toss up. Everything in life comes like that. There's a compromise to everything good, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And if there is no compromise, you're probably not living to your fullest potential. And I think that is like, if I could do things over, I might have kept going with the stand-up and let the acting, I might have let the acting stuff go sooner and kept going with the stand-up, because I mean, I think I've told this story so many times, but the end of my stand-up really sort of came, this was back when you would pay for sets. Like Brett and I were even talking about this the other day. He used to be the guy that would like film, I forget where it was, like not La Brea Bake, but like someplace on La Brea. He would be like the guy that would like shoot, and then you would pay him money to get your set on DVD. So I would always like buy my set, and then I was going to have my friend at work. Actually, this is a funny thing. Do you know Steve Fisher, the basketball coach for Michigan, the Fabulous Four?
I definitely know his name. I mean, I don't know Steve Fisher.
So it was his son who was out here, and he was like a film student, and he was working at Lakeshore with me, and he's like, well, I'll make a reel for you. So he's like, bring in all your things. So anyway, I go out to dinner downtown. I have all of my DVDs with me because I know I'm going to bring them to work with me the next day in my purse. And I get mugged at gunpoint.
No.
I swear to God. And every single minute of comedy that I had was gone. And I felt like, okay. Now, then, that being said, some of my greatest bits came out of that, because then I was like, I used to do this whole bit like to the guy that mugged me. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he could be here because he watched all my stand-up and he really wanted to come see me in person because he's a big fan now. So if you're here, just leave him at the back door. It's okay. I won't be mad. But it just like, that was soul crushing. And like, everybody's like, you didn't burn copies. I was like working an accounting job in international sales at least. Like, I was like, no, I didn't make copies. It didn't occur to me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And like, well, why did you have that bag with you? Because I had packed them so I wouldn't forget the next day. It was just, it was crushing. So then the thing that's even worse is the only footage that exists of me is like the worst show I ever had, where it was at the Pasadena Ice House. It was for this show called Comedy Time, and you sign this waiver going in that they can like that you can live on the internet to perpetuity. So now if anybody finds me from like Schmoedown or whatever, they're like, oh, she did stand up, and then they see it and they're probably like, oh, that's sad. That wasn't very good.
I feel like with stand up, is that because my sense of stand up, talking to every stand up I've ever met, I mean, the most successful ones that are our friends that we both know, I'm sure you've met many that are more successful because I'm not a huge stand up guy, but my understanding is that like you just bomb. The best people in the world bomb sometimes. It just happens. So if somebody wanted to record that one and put it online and that one just happened to be the one that got clicks for some reason, that is something that could exist for literally every stand-up that's ever lived. That is not a reflection of the quality of your work. It's just the reality.
But unfortunately, the rest of my work doesn't exist anymore because it's probably in a sewer in downtown LA.
Well, so when was that? What year was that?
That was 2000. I was already with Dickie. This was like so great because I'm going to make the story longer than it should be. I think it was in 2009. I just got back from teaching at this summer program at Northwestern. I would take the summers off to go teach at, which was a big part of my love and my life at the time. Was just like, I loved teaching theater. I loved teaching acting, and for those who can't teach, right? So, but I had just come back, and it was my landlord at the time was a friend of mine. She was going to be leaving to go to Peru, so she actually had $300 cash on her. And when the guy came out of the van with the gun, I like screamed and like threw my bag, and she ran. And so he never got her money. He got like my $2 in cash and all my stand-up DVDs. And my birth control. That was a real tricky time. So that was another part of my stand-up set. I was like, well, now I'm going to be off my cycle. But anyway, I remember saying to Dickie at the time, so just before leaving for that summer program, I had been in the backyard of the place that I lived at with a fellow tenant, and we heard a woman screaming, like truly. So I lived in Hancock Park at the time, in this woman's garage that had been converted. And we heard a woman's like truly, something is happening, screaming. And we both run to the front yard, and we see these guys peeling out of her driveway. She's kneeling on her driveway, screaming, like just screaming. And it turns out she had just been carjacked. And like we went out, and like the man that had been with me, who was my neighbor at the time, was like, walk this way. Like I was like, what? I was like going to go help her. But the guys were still back. Like they were like, arr! And he was like, he didn't know if they were going to shoot us. He didn't know what they were going to do. And I remember like being very traumatized about that, being with that woman and being like, oh my God, this is so traumatizing. And I had a best friend who like talked me through that. And she's like, why was she screaming? And I said, because she's like, no, whatever they want, you just give it to them. And that has like stuck with me. She's like, you don't resist. You give them the thing they want and they go away. So that was when 2 months later was still sitting on my brain when I then actually got mugged, not in my neighborhood, but downtown. Immediately the first thing was my best friend saying like, you just give them the thing they're asking for. You just give them the car, you give them the purse, whatever. And so that's why I ended up throwing my purse. Like I didn't struggle at all. And like he took it and got in the car, got back in the van and went.
I went immediately to a used DVD shop. Just be like,
I was just like he's like, I think I got some. He ended up being, and by the way the story ends is he ended up being my agent. He just loved my work. Yeah. But yeah, that was it. And so at that point, then I was like, I can't live in my neighborhood anymore. Cause like now that unsafe thing had happened to me. I'd seen it happen to somebody in my neighborhood. And I said to Dickie, I was like, let's move in together. And he was like, no. And he's like, you only want to move in with me because you're scared. I was like, but also I love you. He's like, no, we're not living together. And I was like, so crestfallen by that. Don't worry, guys. He ended up marrying me later. But
yeah, work. You guys were like Johnny. You were like Johnny Cash and June Carter.
Yeah.
You kept being like, move in with me. And he was like, no. Like, move in with me, Dickie.
Yeah. No, I won't do. Anyway, and it was great. That actually, that next 2 years that we didn't live together was huge. Also, we wish we basically don't live together anymore as it is. At the end of the night with a pandemic, when you've been with your spouse and your kids all day, you're just like,
Right. You're going to just go and just intravenously and just
Yeah.
inject margaritas at that point.
That was margaritas too.
So okay. So like you had the aspiration to do the comedy thing. You have all these
Yes.
DVDs, they get stolen. Now, how much time passes between that moment when you're like, I'm fucking kind of, because it was a little after that you kind of left stand up. Is that right?
It was over a year because basically the way I sort of deal with tragedy is through performance or through writing or whatever. So I ended up, my best stand up was still ahead of me, and it was based off of that. Like none of the bits that I've necessarily given right now, but it was the way I sort of worked through it. So I would say I did stand up for about another year. I would say I went through maybe 2010, 2011. So that was August of 2009. But I think I had sort of already lost my faith in it. I felt like I was also becoming a very different person. Dickie and I had met in 2008, and I think, I turned 30 in 2012. That's when we got married, when I was 30. And I think I was just I ended up working at Lakeshore for 7.5 years. Like I had like a very steady, normal job for 7.5 years. And I feel like that, I don't know, I just didn't have the hustle that was necessary. Like I started stand up at the exact time that Andrew Santino did. Like I actually remember he was like, "Oh, you're doing it too?" And I was like, "Yeah," because we worked at Lakeshore together. And I was like, "Yeah, you should come do this room I do." And so he got into doing the room that way, and then he just blew everybody out of the water. He spent a year driving to Long Beach every Friday night and performing at the Queen Mary. Every single Friday. He didn't have a Friday night for a year. And I did not have that in me, Ben. I just didn't. I wasn't going to give up like a Friday night. And I feel like that's just the truth of it is I obviously did not want it badly enough or need it badly enough. And those people, we just end up not doing it, because if you don't have the drive, if you don't have that hustle, and look, what is Andrew doing now? He's made a career being a stand-up comedian and an actor now. So
it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like, speaking about myself, honestly, like I have hustle to do a lot, but I also have like a real want to like live comfortably. And like the big thing that stopped me from playing music as a career when I was like 23 or whatever, when I kind of stopped doing it as a real career aspiration, was like, I don't want to live in a van and stay in Motel 6s with 3 other people. And like, I don't want to have to do this every day. And like, I just don't want to do that. I want to be creative in my own way. And I want to build all these things together. I want to like live a pretty comfortable life, which is like ultimately what I've found. But there are people that are a lot hungrier than me who are willing to sacrifice a lot more. So, you're joking. Maybe if you're less than Z, I'm still Z. I mean, it doesn't just because if that's if that's the point you're making, like I certainly don't think it moves me up.
I don't know where I am not. I have no authority to decide where you are. I will take your word for it that you are Z. I am below you. I guarantee you. I am below. I'm A. But all of this being said, I think the truth is that like, did I love it? I did. I did love it. I still love how scary it is to get on a stage. I still love that rush. I still love how much I learned when I bomb. I still would love, like, and I think it's why Mark Ellis is such a gift to me, because he sort of has a platform, and he can, especially like through Schmoedown, through like getting me up at Comic-Con in his show was like such an act of mercy. And like, thank God I delivered for him and he didn't have to be embarrassed by it. But like, that is somebody who saw what I used to do, knows what I'm capable of, trusted me, and just gave me that spot. And it's like a little shot in the arm. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm in a position now. I've got 2 young kids, one who I'm basically teaching kindergarten to full time. I can't imagine that I'm going to get back into doing stand-up, but like also guess what? I could, because it's at nighttime. And if it wasn't a pandemic right now, could I be somebody who got back out there and like was doing shows? Yeah, I could do it. The question is like, how uncomfortable do I want to be? Because it would be uncomfortable to be like, I'm going to have no personal time. I'm going to use my time to go market myself and do more shows. So I don't know. Who knows what the future holds? But you also still find time for music is my point, I guess. Like,
yeah, well, it was like more of a recent thing. So if 2011 you kind of stepped away from it, so and you're kind of back in this world again, at least on some level. I don't know to what degree you have like decided or committed your heart to it, but I mean, you're definitely on camera a lot. You make time for this stuff. You're, in the Schmoedown, you're a major player there. What was the moment? What was the phone call that started to dip your toe back in the water?
Christian is just so effortlessly persuasive. Like he was like, you gotta, he just throughout the years we would text every once in a while. I remember like running into him and his wife when they had a kid, and I just had a miscarriage. I remember being like, oh, that could be me someday. And like, and it was just so nice to see them. And then we would sort of like touch base, and he always kept saying, you got to come do the show. You got to come do my show. And I just was so scared, but I'm like, I don't know enough about movies. He's like, you don't have to just come do the show. He was talking about Collider Live at the time.
Yeah.
And then he was like, we shoot in Burbank. And I was like, okay, I live in Burbank. So like suddenly it was like there was all of these roadblocks that I had wanted to put up. Like I don't know enough about movies. Now you do. It doesn't matter if you do. I don't know this. And so then I go on, and suddenly I get to be myself again, and I get to be my adult self again, not myself that deals with kids, is interacting with kids all day. That lady's pretty cool too, but she's not, I don't think, very interesting for adults. So I'm like, oh my God, I love this. And I also love learning about movies. Honestly, especially because I did exist in that world. Like Christian the other day was like, or a couple months ago, was like the show Happy, and then I watched it. I'm like, oh my God, it was my friends Mark Neveldine. It was Brian Taylor, Neveldine and Taylor, who like I worked with on multiple movies at Lakeshore. Like I'm in that world. Like it just suddenly I'm like, oh, I feel like this. This was a part of. I did this for 7.5 years, and so then the Schmoedown thing, I don't know that I was his first choice for a manager, but I think again, like Christian has this very lovely trust in me that I will, execute if when called upon. And I hope that I've done him proud in that regard. But he basically, there was a whole thing with, they thought that, initially he said, he's like, I think we have a surprise manager, but if that manager doesn't fall through, I think the fans would like to see you as a manager. And I was like, I don't know what to do, but okay, like will somebody guide me through? And he's like, yeah, don't worry about this. But then that manager the surprise manager went through, and he's like, I'm really sorry that I even asked you that. And I think he felt bad that like, I thought maybe I was going to, and I was like, no, like I was just your backup. It's like, no problem. So then when Emma pulled out, I think he felt like, oh, I owe it to Kate. Like I sort of like, I never felt strung along. He did the right thing always. He was always upfront with me about the possibility that it wouldn't work. And so then he was like, so Emma's not going to do it. I think you could take over, but I'm talking to Ken and Grace, because I think and I was like, listen, they're obviously the natural first choice, like put them in. And he's like, okay, well, I'll call you back and let you know what they decide. And he called back and he's like, Grace wants to do it with you. And I was like, let's do it then. Like, cause she and I had met at Comic-Con last year and just fell in love. I love her. But that was like, that was it. That's how it started.
So comparing like how you current, like right now, I mean, and obviously quarantine's kind of fucked this up for all of us, but like you get up and you think about your week on a week-to-week basis, what this week's going to look like, what might next month, your aspirations for what you want to do with this. You compare this to say, let's just say your life 4 years ago. Does it feel like worlds apart?
Yeah, I think it does in a lot of ways. Cause I think 4 years ago, I had a 1-year-old baby and I was only living for him. And now I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and the kids make a big difference. Like the age of that, like they're definitely less dependent on me. Like I nursed my second kid to he turned to. I nursed it's just like it's no joke. It's like your body belongs to that. Is you are their food store. I mean, so there's all of this stuff, and I think I just didn't pay attention to myself at all. And I think part of the reason why it ended up being such a hard time, my transition into motherhood, is because I really abandoned myself completely. And so I think now I sort of have this kind of great balance going where it's like, okay, what are the things that I'm excited to do for myself this week? And how can I communicate with Dickie so that he knows like this is the time I need? And then how can I also get time in with my favorite people on the planet, which are my kids? And I don't know. It's just, I have to say, like, there's been like, every time I get to be on SEN Live, every time I've gotten to do a Schmoedown match, every time I've gotten to travel for Schmoedown, it's been just such a high point of my week or day, even if it's not happening that frequently. And I don't know. I just feel like that's wildly different than 4 years ago, when I don't know, like maybe a high point of a week or day would have been like, Neil did this funny thing where he walked and then he fell and then he said, oopsie, you know what I mean? Like there would be nothing I could tell you about myself at that point. So I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I do feel like I'm being myself again, and that I really am, even though I know I'm playing a character in Schmoedown, even just getting back to like my improv roots with that character a bit has been so fun.
How's that been for you, figuring out the marriage between Kate Mulligan and Kate Mulligan? Like,
God, yeah,
because it's like the accent's absurd, and I think we all know it's absurd.
Yes, it's absurd. It's absurd because it's a much heightened. Like, my mother definitely. Like, I still hear myself have the accent every once. Like the other day I said, like, well, if it's an accident, like I said, like a really hard A. I was like, well, I think it was just an accident. Like, James, don't be mad. It was an accident. Neil didn't mean to. And I'm like, oh my God. But my mom is somebody who still says, like, your bra is showing. And I'll be like, oh my God, my bra is showing. Like, I hear it on other people. So and it's the way I do all impressions. Is you just like, if the truth of the impression is, if there's a scale from like 1 to 10, and the truth of the impression's at 5, I live about at 9 or 10. Like,
okay, gotcha.
You still get the impression, but it's like a really heightened version of it. And that's true for like when I do Brad Pitt with that stupid app I have, or like when I do like the Queen. It's like, it's all like, I'm always living at 9, and like John Robert Thompson, like the reason he's so good is because he lives right at 5. Like, he actually becomes that person.
He's amazing. Yeah,
he's unbelievable. I mean, I wish someday I could ever do even one impression that great. So the accent is totally out of control. When Christian told me we were taking over for Emma, he's like, so you're a heel. And I was like, well, that's not going to come naturally for me. Like, and even, so I had to just figure out something to put on to make it. And it was that thing I tried out at the draft that he immediately told me to stop doing. And then I went on stage and called him out for telling me to stop doing it. And then it was born. I was like, Christian says I should stop doing the accent. I don't think so, buddy. Next Paul Preston. Like, I just was,
Well, it's totally outrageous, and it's become this kind of comic character. But the thing is, what I've noticed with your management, and this I can just say from, we've had a couple conversations offline about Schmoedown strategy.
Oh yeah.
Is like, you have a real desire to be better as a manager, and that desire, that real love for like the game and wanting to be better at it, it contrasts with the sort of outrageous nature of this character you're playing, because I feel like I've seen moments in matches before where I can see the deer in headlights for a second when you're like, what am I doing with this accent right now? Like, what do I do here? I think people reference the moment in the teams match with the Festival of Darlings thing a lot, because like, it's an early mistake. It's really hard to stay in character when you make a mistake, right? It's one of the things I've definitely learned. Yeah.
So, I was gonna say that, and also, by the way, that was my first ever day of matches. That was the second match we did. Sorry, the third. It was like my first day of shooting. I'm probably not supposed to say, but we shot a bunch of matches that day, and so that was my first day as a manager. And oh my God, that was I deserve every ill word that has come at me for that. But man, I'll tell you what. There's a match that will come out. I actually turned my camera off because I'm crying.
No way.
Yeah. And then Courtney had to be like, you need to turn your camera on, because I think she thought I was like feeding somebody answers. But I was like, no, I'm not ready yet. I felt so crestfallen about how I messed this player up. I mean, I don't want to be bad at this. I don't want to be bad at anything that I take on, but I definitely feel like there's such a learning curve on this all. And like, I've picked this very big thing to do, and it was very, very, you'll see it. I don't even stay in character. Really.
It's really hard to, it's really hard to do. The best character I've ever seen in the Schmoedown is Andrew Guy, and he's the the best there's ever been. I mean, he's like, just
know what?
because his sheer commitment to the character is so far beyond anyone's commitment to trivia has ever been, that like and I've never seen him break ever, really. But it's an amazing thing to watch. Do what?
I said I can't say the same for myself.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
right.
like what I learned, and I think I've seen it happen to a lot of people, is there seems to be levels people are capable of operating at. When I came in as Team Action with Andrew, like we were these big, outrageous characters. We yell and scream and throw up the bird all the time, and he was bigger than me with that. So it was easier for me to do because no matter what happened in a match, he would always go bigger. And so I could kind of anchor us with trivia, and he would really anchor the character stuff. Once we broke off, there was like some weird stuff where Christian was like, do this, or you should do this. And what people have now criticized me for is saying that I've always been a heel and I've never stopped, is like, because for the brief period of time where I was told in Chicago, for instance, was one of the matches, I have this distinct memory. I've told this before, like, we're downstairs in the green room. There's 1,000 fans. We're about to headline the event. Mark and I had lost at the Spectacular the previous year, by one question. We'd almost won the title. And the whole story was I got put through the table. So I was supposed to be we were supposed to be faces. And Riley, it's easy for him to be a face. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Snyder and Draco especially. I mean, Roxy's their manager. She and I were totally good at the time. And Snyder and Draco, we're all sitting down in the green room, and it's like Mark and I are here on a couch, and Draco and Snyder are here on a couch. We're all like, "Guys ready for the match?" Yep. It's like, oh man, 10 minutes. I'm just gonna go get some air outside, guys. I'll see you up there. Good luck. It was like take the balloon that is me in the Schmoedown and just fucking put a needle in it and just watch it slowly deflate. Is what it felt like. And I was just like, I'm never doing that shit ever again, because I walked out on stage with absolutely no edge. Yeah. And I was like, if you want to call me a heel, call me a heel. It's like, it's the thing that keeps me going in the match. Like, you keep the car running while it's plugged in and the battery's charging. Like, that's how I feel. I've got to be running as a car if I want to, that was maybe a bad metaphor, but
no, I it.
And that's the thing, is like everybody's a little different. I've heard Kalinowski say before, he was like, yeah, I wanted to do what you and Drew did, but I realized in those really competitive matches that trying to focus on that heel work in the match while also executing trivia was not something I could do. And he's like, I had to drop that stuff during the win. And it's just different for everybody.
Yeah, it's to each their own, right? I definitely, in terms of, thank God I don't need to know any trivia. Although I will say something that I do actually need to know trivia, and that's something I actually do need to know. I need to be able to see the challenges for myself. And that's something that I really dropped this match that I'm talking about, that I really fall to pieces. Is I just should have, I was questioning myself. I'm like, this seems incongruous. Should I challenge? Then there's this delay of should I challenge, right?
And you think about it, and then you don't.
And then I do, and they're like, sorry, the time has passed to challenge it. And then finally Tom saw what I was talking about. Anyway, it's over. It's fine.
What I was going to ask you was, so you've committed to this Schmoedown thing. And
yes.
You talk about it all the time. I'm sure you think about it all the time. I'm sure Christian texts you match results, and he's on the phone with you all the time.
Yeah.
How does your family feel about this stuff? Do they embrace it? Do they get it, or are they kind of separate from it?
I actually got to bring Neil to a match when we were shooting in studio. I actually didn't get to. I had to. That was my childcare that day. It was me. That was actually Sean Sullivan's match that day, when they're like, Sean's matches now. I'm like, well, we didn't know. And they're like, can he do it? I'm like, yeah, I guess he could do it. So I was like, but I have to bring my kid. So Neil, the 5-year-old, is in love with it. He hasn't watched as much recently, but he'll even come up with jokes. He'll be like, you should tell your friends this joke. And I'll be like, okay. And I know he means Schmoedown people. He wants me to tell. Dickie's into it. I think Dickie sort of, I don't know what his it's Schmoedown to him. It means it's something that makes me feel good and makes me happy, and that I come out and be in a good mood. So I think he loves it on that level. But it also means a lot of extra work for him, because that means during those matches, he needs to be the sole child care provider. Nobody was more a champion of me going out to New York than he was, but he did have our 2 young children alone for 4 days. You know what I mean? Right.
I
don't, he has not necessarily found the time to take it in, but I think it's because it feels like such a big, it's not that that he's not supportive. I think it's like the way he takes on the Schmoedown is in like doing the support work behind the scenes. And that's sort of his relationship with it right now. I think he would love it. But I also think like, you know, at the end of the day, he's like, I just watched our kids for 4 straight days. I'm not going to watch your match.
Yeah. I get that completely.
Yeah.
I feel like you're immersed in it. And I also feel like you take seriously the sort of larger than life personas of some of these people. I feel like maybe more so than you did when it started. Who is there anybody in the league who you look at and you kind of, in the way that like an athlete would maybe look at like another athlete, or a coach would look at a player on another team in a sport and be like, that person's great. I'm working with that person's like, that person's, do you like feel that way about anyone, or is it still, we're all friends kind of?
No, we all are friends, but I do have to say, like, in terms of management, I love Shannon Barney. I feel like she, I don't know. I love the way that she stays, like, she even attacks trolls in character. And I feel like that's always been so confusing for me. Like, just even like her coming after me, and like when we were having the match earlier in the year, and like the way she came for me, I don't know. She's just, I feel like she's just so solid in that character work. And I feel like that's something I'm like, I'm not that solid. Like I still like am nice to people on Twitter. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry you feel it. You know, like I just can't like, but she, she's just, I feel like she's just a beast in terms of management. But I also have to say, like, I look at Winston in terms of management, and I think like, God, that's a perfect example of a manager as a hype man, which is just somebody that builds you up. Not to mention, he drafted beautifully. Like, let's call a spade a spade. He's got powerhouses on his team because he put powerhouses on his team. Now, I do have to say, like, Ace made himself into that powerhouse that he was this year. I don't know that anybody expected that was Winston necessarily drafting well. But I also feel like every single one of those teammates, they like how supported they feel by Winston and how active he is in all of, you know, and even just the way he hypes them up during a match. I love the way he works. And in terms of like competitors, like personalities, like I love the weirdos. I love the weirdos so much. I think part of the reason why I love the weirdos is you think that it's such a surprise when they get things right. I think like the fact that you are a flawless player, I'm sort of like, yes. And I expect that. Like, sort of like, it's more unexpected for you to get something wrong. But when Lon Harris gets a bunch of things right in a row, I'm like, well, how did that happen? Because he's playing this vagrant. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with my Tom. Like, I feel like Tom, I love Tom's character work. And like, you know, he holds up his hands and he's got like faces drawn on them. Like it's to me, I'm like, well, this guy's not going to get anything right. And then he just nails it, you know? So I'm sort of fangirling over the weird characters right now for sure. That wasn't a dig at you, by the way. I feel like
no, I don't trust me. I'm not pushing for compliments here.
No, I know you're not.
I pat myself on the back plenty. So, but are you, so the season's going to end in a few months and I don't have the standings directly in front of me, but I feel like the Den is struggling.
Yes.
You guys have obviously Preston losing that first round to Zipper was rough. That was a tough start. Obviously Tom beat Franco recently, so we got to see that. So he's still in, you know, and who else did you put in the tournament? Did
Rachel? I put Rachel in.
Yes. Knocked out by Liz. That's tough. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Liz, I think Liz is a real powerhouse. I sort of feel like I would be upset if Rachel lost to someone else, but losing to Liz, that's a great person to lose to. Liz's Rachel played a great game and Liz just bested her. I mean, there was no holes in that.
Liz is really good. I mean, Liz is really interesting because I feel like she's a player. She doesn't have a large character, and she came in touted by Erwin as this great player. And I feel like people have undersold her in terms of what she's just knowledge-wise capable of. Because I had to play Liz as my round one opponent in last year's tournament. Yeah. And, you know, I took her seriously, like I prepared, but like a good indicator of when I take a player not seriously, a good indicator of what level I feel like I have to go to for a player is what I put on the wheel. So like if I put Oscars and movie release dates on the wheel, it's because I don't think that player is going to go out of their way to do anything to get in the way of my regular game.
Right.
So I just feel like I can play my standard game that they're going to expect. I don't have to do anything special, which is what I figured Liz was going to do. I didn't think Liz was going to research me and like come up with a game plan. And she was pretty good. Like I'm trying to remember how the match went, but I feel like I got a lucky break maybe in round 2, like a 2-point steal. And that was how it ended. But I actually think she was my toughest opponent in the entire tournament. I think I steamrolled Preston, Meyer, and Bibbs. I think Liz was the only tough match. I think Paul was close, but I think Liz played better than any of them.
Yeah, I think that, and she actually has said too, I think Winston's such a good match for her is because they've decided like, I will be the mouthpiece, you be the trivia. And like, that's a dynamic that really works for them. I don't know who Winston could possibly drop at this point, because like, I'll tell you what, I don't know. Well, I guess we have to just see also how Liz does in the tournament, but he's sitting on just a bunch of gold there. I don't know how anybody's going to drop anybody. Part of the problem is that I just love all of the people on the deck. I
feel like Goddard's your guy. I feel like he's been your guy from day one. I feel like you've invested a lot. He's been your best point getter. I feel like Preston and Tom were your big picks. They you had that wheel slot, so you did really well with those two guys. I really think they're both great. I think that Preston's loss in round 1 was, he played a good player, but I think the questions, I hated those comic book movie questions. I thought that was a really, really tough break for him. And I think I honestly think, Mulligan, what you had this year was a combination of like a little bit of inexperience as a manager. So a couple things didn't quite break your way.
Yeah,
and I think you had a couple bad breaks. I think I had Preston in my prediction coming out of his quadrant as the guy in the semis. I thought he was going to make it. He was my pick. I think he's that good.
Yeah.
So.
And I think Paul also is another person. He's somebody who, I love his character work. He's somebody who, and he's just been such he's somebody I love. He's somebody who, honestly, we will talk for like an hour to an hour now. I mean, that whole bit with the, I don't know if you saw the match or not, but with the protein shake, we like worked that out ad nauseum prior, and it ended up going over so well. But I was like, so we were like having to figure out the hand, and okay, but then you're gonna pour it into it. It was just, he's a real joy. And I'll tell you what, the worst part of Schmoedown for me is talking to people after their losses. Is like, he was a wreck, and not a wreck, like not like weeping or anything, but I could tell there was nothing I could say that was going to drag him out of that little hole he was falling down. And Saul, I hope Saul doesn't mind me saying this, but like after Saul's loss, by the way, I think Saul is like a real sleeper hit. Like he hung with Hannah in that. It was he played really well. He did. There was not a knockout, and he knew so much stuff that he had like a miss. He's like, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Sven. He was like, that answer, I knew that answer, but it seemed too easy. It seemed too easy. I felt like they can't be asking this. This seems too easy. So he like missed in that question in round 1. But I couldn't get in touch with him for 3 days. Yeah. I was like, Saul, you can't go off the grid anymore. That made me too nervous. You're a real mystery, man. I don't know if you were okay. And he was like, okay. He's like, I just went back home. I was like, well, then call me back. I was just like, I couldn't get in touch with him after that. So, I mean, that's always been so hard for me, is because I just want everybody to feel like,
I know.
It's okay.
Think about it from this perspective. I go out there and I needle the shit out of people.
Yeah.
And I needle them and I needle them and I needle them. And then sometimes I win. Every once in a while, I've needled them publicly in front of a live crowd and I win. I felt bad for Paul Oyama at last year's Spectacular because he played a tough game. I rarely will ever express this sympathy for him, but I felt so bad for Bibiani after I beat him, because like, I know how seriously he had prepared for that match. I know how much he wanted to win. And the fact that he lost 2 matches that day, and I was totally that guy to him in the match, because that's how I play. Like, I just put myself in people's shoes sometimes, thinking about how just angry I would be and how much I would want to go fucking push me off the stage. Like, but that's, I'm sure, why he felt so good probably when they beat us a couple weeks ago. I'm sure it was like the sweetest vindication in the world. And I was like, I was devastated. It was the fucking worst. It was the most embarrassing loss. And I like, the Preston and the way I've had to talk to players after losses many times. Andrew Guy famously takes losses as hard as anyone, and like, you know, it's just tough.
If somebody called you after that match, if anybody called you after the match, did you pick up?
Like that night?
Yeah.
I think I went and I did like a Zoom hangout with Riley and Julie and I think some other people, and then I think I went and met up with a few buddies. We go drink in the park because you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I think I met up with Drew maybe and some friends, and we got kind of drunk. And
I was gonna say, you communicate with people.
I take losses hard. I think on the scale of who takes losses hard, I think I take losses a 1 maybe or a 2 compared to some people who take them as a 10. They bum me out. Like, oh man, Atlanta, huge bummer. But I don't get angry. I'm not like sort of unable to separate, because like I do recognize that at the end of the day, playing in the match is the thing that matters the most. It's more than winning, because this is a show. We're all just using the platform to try to power another thing. It's winning in Schmoedown is a pride thing. I don't make $1 million for winning a match. I make my for me when I win a title, it gives me more credibility in other areas, and that's I think, but like I've had the experience happen when I'm like tried to express to people over the years like what it is, like even at the height of heights, like after Spectacular this last year, like trying to explain to people I was meeting like what the fuck this thing I do is, and being like, yeah, I'm a world champion of it's the biggest trivia show and they're like, oh, cool show, bro. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but like I'm kind of a big deal, like.
What win feels the best for you? I mean, I have to imagine when Spectacular last. I mean, you just systematically destroyed everyone. But this past week had to have felt good, being on that bill with Jericho and Smith, knowing how many people were watching and to play the game that you played.
It was sweet to get the win in that match, but that match was ugly, and it was a bummer that it was against my best friend. Like that sucked. I felt as bad for him as I felt good for myself, because I know he's a better player than that, and I know that he was giving it what he had, and it just that day it just didn't go his way, so that sucked for him. I think probably looking back at the wins over the years, there's like a handful that are like those special ones. I think the day I played Brendan with the golf club just before the back surgery was like probably close to the top of my favorite experiences ever, because the whole entire narrative behind it, the like weird, like fractured state my brain was in. I had been off of morphine for like a day, for 24 hours. So and I had been on it for a month at that point. So like I was sweating and like I couldn't stand up. That was awesome.
I also forget about that back surgery. Dude, you've had back surgery.
Yeah, it sucked. It was. Yeah. Spectacular was great. Spectacular was somewhat anticlimactic because of the nature of the matches. They were both enormous blowouts for the most part. Bibiani was closer, but I mean, like, Polyama's title score is the lowest score in title match history. He lost 16-3 in a 5-round match. He scored 3 points in 5 rounds. I mean, like, Paul is probably my favorite player in the entire league that's come in the last like 2 seasons, because I have such immense respect for his knowledge of the game, and I think so I think that's why, to be honest with you, I think that's why that was Winston's smartest pick. I think Chandru was a Hail Mary that I think was a good pick, but I think Chandru overperformed. Oyama is the best player to draft. If you want to draft someone who's like gonna bring something to your faction, he's the smartest player, he's the most capable player, and so I have so much respect for him. I think I bring my own special brand, but remember, that kid's 10 years younger than me, and he, on a strategy level, competes basically as an equal. Like, there are games I would play against Polyama that I think I would get blown out.
Well, okay, but I feel terrible even saying this, because I shouldn't. Paul Oyama, I couldn't agree with you more. I think he's fantastic, but don't you feel like that kind of, I hate to say the word because I know I've overused it, but he choked a bit at Spectacular. Is that fair? Choked? He had to have 3 points in a fight. Like, I've seen people in the singles tournament have better first rounds like than he had in the entire, like, it just seems to me like that something happened to him that day, which, listen, that's great. Like, if his highs are as high as they are, and like his highs are high, man, like he can deliver.
He won the title and he defended, yeah.
And defended it. So like his highs are high. But I do feel like there is a risk and I think, honestly, to his credit, I think he was just waiting around all day long to play. I mean, wasn't it the last match of like 6? I mean, that's so hard. And like just the noise that must have been going on in his head. I don't know. I'm just saying, to me, I'm sort of like, well, there's maybe a volatility there that needs to be looked at, that like something happened. I don't know what it was, but like, I don't think that was typical Paul, is what I would say.
Looking back at the match, I mean, if you break it down, like from an X's and O's standpoint, when you look at any match, you can sort of figure out, like, and I've said this many times, but like, you can basically figure out the nature of the questions that are being asked. And matches will often come down to like, which set of questions did you get? Did you get the ones where they ask you for plot points, or did you get the ones where they ask you for information? And if you get asked a lot of plot points, you'll usually have a worse day. Now, some players happen to know those plot points that day, so they look really smart. But I mean, I have said over and over again, like, Paul got asked basically 4 questions in the category of classics, one of which was the location of a movie, one of which was the name of a character, one of which was the name of a store, and the other of which was which movie by this collaboration of actors came out first. So we got a movie release dates question in 3 contexts. Like, it doesn't matter if you know a lot about those movies unless you've watched them all recently.
Yeah.
And like, or like have a real awareness of them from conversations. Like, you've talked about the plot of The Third Man over and over again. They're just the kind of questions. Now there is something to be said for, like, he was going for points. He didn't go to multiple choice. So like, there's some gameplay errors there and a 5-rounder that he could have played better. And he's admitted to being spooked. He admitted that, like, because I came into that match with like so much energy and momentum from the earlier win in the day. And also, like, the other thing too is, like, from a performance standpoint, like, Paul Oyama is not a kid who naturally is somebody that would call himself a performer. He's a kid who's like very, very, very trivia minded. Like, I am someone who thrives performing. So like, I look back at that match. I've laughed about this before. There's like a question he misses in the first round. It's like the 3rd or 4th question, and he misses it, and I get it right. And I think I stand up and I scream into the microphone, "This is your champion," or something ridiculous like that. Like, the kind of thing that I think, like, it seemed so like huge and theatrical at the time, but I was just like pure, like, fucking, I was like boiling over. And I'm sure him in his state, like, I'm sure shit like that just was like, this guy's like screaming at me. Like, why is this guy coming at me like this? You know, I'm just trying to focus here. And I think that, you know, there is a difference. There is a difference between the way you play the game. I think he lost points on the betting round. He lost 3 points. So that makes his final score look a lot worse.
Right.
But yeah, I just think, yeah. So anyway, that was me tangent. Go ahead.
No, that was me. I was the one that brought it up, because I was going to say, like, I agree with you. Paul is such a catch. And like, I also just think such a really sweet, great guy. But also I'm sort of like, yeah, but then like you have a moment like that where it just seems like, okay, well, if you could ensure that doesn't happen again, but that does seem like a risk, is that like, that is also part of the bag that comes with Paul Oyama. And I think that's like, I can look at myself the same way and be like, yes, you will have a manager that might cut some funny promos for you and will be as big of an advocate as she can behind the scenes for you, and, you know, during a match as she can. But also, like, where she chokes is knowing other people's strengths and picking the wrong thing for, like, allowing you to pick the wrong thing for a wheel slice, or where she chokes is not picking up a challenge fast enough in an online. Then you have me turning my camera off, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I don't know. I'm being critical of Paul, but it's also because I'm willing to put those same eyes on myself. And, you know, there's, you know, that I have volatility as well.
I think
that make it better.
Yeah, but I mean, I think when you talk about the difference between like the X's and O's of it, like the questions you happen to get asked that day, some of that stuff is unavoidable. Some of that stuff is just going to be like the way that it broke that day. And then some of it is mitigating risk, like figuring out a way to realize that I mean, again, we talk about this all the time. Everybody in the league talks about this, but like the round 2 is such a volatile round, right? There's a few players in the league. Like, You know how good Dan Murrow is because Dan doesn't like spinners and opponents on the wheel in title matches. He wants there to be 12 categories that he feels he has just an innate advantage because he's that good. He doesn't even know if they're going to be, but he just believes he knows more, so he doesn't want it on there. He doesn't want spinners and opponents to end the match. That's just not the case for me and for most players because I believe that there's a Moneyball system to any wheel that comes together where you can figure out based on what you're going to guess is going to be on there, I can get an advantage by doing something. Now, to get that advantage, things do have to go in your favor. If they don't go in your favor, it's not going to matter what work you put in because sometimes you just won't get the questions that day. You'll just have bad luck.
Yeah.
And I think
I do think matches get decided, especially 3-round matches really do get decided in round 2. I mean, I don't stand by that completely, but from what I've noticed, round 1, it doesn't matter who's up because like it can still switch so quickly. Listen, is it better for a person's psyche to go into round 2 being up a point? Yeah. Or up a couple points? Yes, of course. But I still feel like you can be down in round 1 and still win the match. Whereas I feel like if you go into round 3 down from after a bad round 2, I feel like it's very rare that you can pull out of that.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I think the 5-pointer these days decides most matches. To me, that feels like the single deciding factor because they've become so obscure for the most part that to know a 5, it feels like it's more often than not you won't know it. And so I feel like that's the thing that'll end most matches. But by that standard, then if both players miss their 5, then it should be whoever's going into the match.
Right. It's going into that 3rd round,
yeah. So I don't know. But well, anyway. That's the Schmoedown component of the show. We've now been going for a little over an hour, so I think we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon. But thank you so much for coming on and doing the episode. I think people will enjoy hearing this. I feel like we could keep going, so maybe we'll bring you on for part 2 another time.
Listen, I'd be happy to. This is for those of you who don't know, Ben Bateman was initially my arch nemesis in the Schmoedown.
Oh yeah,
self-generated, and I have eaten my shorts on that.
Wait, so you used to, because wasn't the first time that we ever met, wasn't it like we were in a hotel room at Comic-Con and Christian was showing the promo for Kalinowski Cushing?
I was sure that Kalinowski, I was like, oh, so Kalinowski used to date Raxi, and then Raxi slaps him and he's like, and I was like,
that guy's sitting right there.
You're like a whiskey in your hands. I was like, hi.
I was like, nice to meet you, Kate.
Yeah, like, hi. So sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Oh boy.
But you doubled down. You talked a lot of shit about me on SEN. I mean, you were like, you called. You said Bibiani was gonna win. You definitely said that I was like,
happy. Aren't you so happy that I called that Bibiani? Because my picks are always wrong. Then you can win spectacular.
You like, I also like on air, you were like, nobody needs to give Ben Bateman a compliment because he gives himself so many. Like, you took a lot of shots at me, Mulligan.
And I would just like to say publicly, I apologize because I did not know the person underneath the character. And now that I know the person, I am a big fan. And also, I feel like
anyway. Well, that's one of the weirdest things, though, because like you look at your guy Tom, that's a character. Full well, that's a character.
Yes.
My character in the Schmoedown is not that different from who I am. It's a little different. It's probably 20% different. I'm just a little less arrogant, I think.
I think that your character in the Schmoedown would never wear the button that you, what was her name?
Oh, Emma McAllister?
Yes, Emma. I'm so sorry. Ugh, I blanked on that. I feel like that is like everything I need to know about you is like you're a guy that like this is like a thing that means a lot to you is like remembering the passing of a fan and a friend. And like, I don't know. I just feel like the guy that you are in the Schmoedown that like yells at, this is your champion. Is not the same guy. Like, I don't believe you're that guy. I don't. Am I wrong? Are you that guy?
I think, look, if I'm just being candid, I think I'm pretty fucking arrogant. I think I'm pretty smart. I think I like myself. I think I also realize how much of a jackass all of those qualities can make me if I don't keep them in check. So I try to have a sense of humor and take some shots at myself.
Yeah.
But I really, when I work at something, I want to be good at it. And I dislike working at something. I think I said this to someone the other day, but like literally in the Schmoedown, the thing I've wanted more than anything, number one, is to be the best of all time. It's pretty hard to do. I'm gonna have to play for a long time. It's gonna be pretty hard to get there. I've got to beat Dan a bunch of times to get there. The thing I want to leave with the game, if I never achieve that, is I want people to be like, changed the game by the way he saw it and played it. Basically, I just want people to be like, Bateman's really smart.
That's already
That's basically it.
Already happened. Nobody has approached the game. You are moneyballing the Schmoedown right now. You are. You're like there's like, I feel like you're Russell Crowe and a beautiful, like there's like things spinning in your head. Like there's like equations and like you're conjugating verbs and stuff. I mean, I don't know, but like I feel like that's already happening. I also think that anybody who says that being confident or liking yourself or thinking that you're smart or anything, like that is the mark of a successful person. Anybody who's like, and I can be that person sometimes. I can definitely be like, but like that to me is like, those aren't bad qualities. And especially if those qualities are matched with somebody who genuinely cares about other people, which is who you are. That is the thing. Is like, I think you genuinely care about other people.
Try to.
That was the least convincing. Try to. Sort of, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you don't genuinely care about people.
I do care about people. I like people. I don't wish ill will on anyone pretty much ever. But now we're just talking about me, which was not the point of the interview. So Mulligan, I appreciate you coming on the show. I genuinely do. And guys, if you're watching and you're listening, where can the folks follow along if they want to follow you? You have a hot Instagram, right? A lot of thirst traps.
I don't know how to take that bait and I don't know how to take that Bateman and make it funny, but keep it cagey. Yeah, I've got a thirst trap Instagram. It's called Katest Mom Ever. That's like greatest, but Katest. I don't know if you guys can figure that one out or not. Yeah, and it's just a lot of pictures of me just looking sexy. No, it's just a lot of jokes and me doing an impressions app that I pay way too much money for in a week.
While looking sexy.
While looking super sexy. If you guys love a bikini and listen, if you love knee cellulite as much as I have it, you are going to love these bikini pictures I put out.
Nice.
Just kidding, guys. I'll never wear a bikini again. And then also same thing on Twitter, Katest Mom Ever. And then I'm on, SEN in the mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah.
Very cool. And you've got players in the tournament still. So follow along with her Schmoedown career. She's doing a great job.
Yeah. Have we even announced the teams yet?
I don't think so. I don't think the team tournament has been announced yet.
Okay. Never mind. Keep them
rolling.
I
don't know who you're putting in there, but I'll be excited to hear about it when it gets announced. Guys, if you have not already hit the like button on the video, please do. Please leave a comment as soon as this is over. Literally the second it's over, just leave a comment. Be like, Kate's great. Katest Mom Ever. Bikini pictures, something funny. Whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, just leave a comment because it definitely helps these videos to do it. And hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't yet. Thanks for watching Nerds in Suits.
I'm sorry to interrupt your outro, but let's get this man his hummingbird. And just basically, because you get something too, you get to know his last name. What if they use PayPal or Venmo?
It's streamlabs.com/nerdsandsuits. And anything that gets put in here on this interview, when next Monday, when I do the live show for the goal setting, I'll read out your comments like I always do. So
find out that last name.
Yeah, sweet. I'm sure it's going to end up in the comments. Don't fucking post it. I'll delete it. All right. Thanks. Mulligan.
Bye. Thank you. Guys. Bye.
Wasn't that fun, guys? Kate is a treat. So many good laughs. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks to all the nerds in the Nerd Network and everybody who supports this channel. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys could just please leave a comment as soon as this is over, I will respond to all of them. The comments go a long way towards the channel succeeding. And of course, if you're listening for the first time, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You guys kick butt. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening. And a big time thank you to all of my double diamond certified nerds in the Nerd Network. I got a big shout out to Philip Gustafson, Jake Yakavetta, Jeremiah Morris, Thomas Gosselin, and Trevor Fast. You guys are great. Thank you so much. And to all of my other patrons, to all my other supporters of the brand Nerds and Suits, look forward to what's coming next because I'm back at it. I'm back fully committed to the Starship Endurance. We're getting exciting things going here. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.